Hello everyone, and welcome back to the pumpkin patch for a very special day because it's Killer Queens Day. So of course I wanted to cover this episode where we talk about some fierce ladies. All four of our horror movies today are led by women. So join me, if you will, pumpkin patch, for this episode of Days of Halloween, Killer Queens. For our classic movie of today, we've chosen Elvira, Mistress of the Dark from 1988. It's a horror comedy. It has Cassandra Peterson, who we love here at the Fall Horsemen, and she's Elvira. In this movie, the horror hostess Elvira inherits a home in Falwell, Massachusetts, which is a pretty conservative community. She immediately goes there to collect her inheritance because she's trying to start a Las Vegas show that costs $50,000. So she wants to sell her aunt's home that she just inherited so that she can start this Las Vegas show. She gets there and immediately the townspeople don't really enjoy her presence very much. And why, do you ask? Because they're all very conservative and they don't enjoy her style, except the teenagers of the town who really enjoy Elvira's presence there and whose parents are immediately like, no, we don't like this woman and we don't like her influence on you. While she's in the town, she does make one adult friend named Bob who is a theater operator and helps her put on a horror movie film festival. Horror movie film festival with Elvira there in a small conservative town, that's where you lost me. But a horror movie film festival with Elvira, yes please, I'll be there. Sign me up. The theater operator Bob has developed a crush on Elvira. Unfortunately, the evil Patty, who owns some other store in the town, humiliates Elvira in the middle of this horror film festival. That's just one of the odd and strange things that happens to Elvira in this town. Also, her Uncle Vincent comes to visit and he wants to get his hands on the deceased aunt's spell book. He offers to pay Elvira $50 for it and she says no. Then a series of other mishaps occur, including an attempted burning at the stake, magical battles, an adult woman who still stuffs her bra? What? I mean, maybe she was just doing it because she was jealous of Elvira and like understood because like, wow, amazing. But like, as an adult woman, like, don't stuff your bra. Don't stuff your bra as a teenager either. Don't stuff your bra. Don't do that. There's a club in town called the Morality Club that has a picnic. It's just kind of funny in and of itself. And then, due to a magical spell, there's some sexy dancing by some conservative people in conservative clothing. So I think you can tell that this is definitely a horror comedy and it's definitely going to go some unique and wonderful places. The distribution company for this movie went out of business the day before this movie was released in theaters. And because of that, it didn't make back its budget in its theatrical run. This movie is co-written by John Paragon, who Cassandra Peterson met during her time in The Groundlings. Tim Burton was slated to direct this movie originally, but then he got caught up doing Beetlejuice. John Signorelli directed this movie. He actually only had one movie that he directed prior to directing Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, but he directed a bunch of sketches on SNL. Since Cassandra Peterson also came from that sketch comedy world, she felt very comfortable that he'd be able to help capture her vision in this movie. The character of Bob in this movie was named for Robert Redding, who was Cassandra Peterson's best friend who passed away from AIDS in 1986, unfortunately. Robert Redding helped to design Elvira's signature style with the wig and the dress. And in fact, for many years after his passing, Elvira felt like she was very harsh on the wig designers after that because he just knew how to do it just right. We really think you'll enjoy Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. It's a great, fun time, and I think it's definitely a horror classic, and certainly a cult classic as of now. So, hope you enjoy Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. You can catch that on Tubi, which is free. Also, it's on Pluto TV, which is also free. For our overlooked horror movie of today, we've chosen A Girl Walks Home Alone. This movie is a Persian language Western vampire movie. Its director, Anna Lily Amarpour, really wanted to make a movie that was a spaghetti Western style movie, but she wanted to make it with a female lead, and she also wanted to make it where it involved a vampire, which is awesome. This movie came out in 2014. It debuted at Sundance. Anna Lily Amirpour really wanted to make this movie, and so she crowdfunded it using Indiegogo and made this movie for $56,000. The movie opens with Arash, who's taking care of his heroin-addicted father. Then we see a drug dealer and pimp named Saeed come and harass Arash and his father, and eventually takes Arash's car to help pay off his dad's drug debts. Saeed meets a bad fate when he comes across a strange young woman at night, because maybe she's a vampire. But not just a vampire, also a music lover and a skateboarder. The girl eventually meets Arash, and it becomes more of a friendship or love story. We don't really know, even at the end of this movie, what happens between the girl and Arash, which in the movie, the main character is always only known as the girl. The city in this movie is called Bad City, and the girl acts as an anti-hero throughout the movie, and maybe she's a bit of a vigilante too. She's going after bad men. Honestly, like, just a piece of advice for the girl going forward, like, don't go to Star City. They're serious about that anti-vigilante stuff. Just stay in Bad City. I'm sure there's plenty of dudes that you can vigilante there. This movie was shot in Southern California and not in Iran. This movie was heavily promoted as the first Iranian vampire western. Anna Lily Amirpour is a skateboarder herself, and she stood in for many of the skateboarding scenes. I thought that was a really cool fact about this movie. I really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed reading more about Anna Lily Amirpour. She also really wanted to make this movie. She couldn't film it in Iran because they have a lot of censorship rules, and they have a lot of control over what's filmed there. And then she also ended up putting in a character who is a homosexual named Rockabilly, because Iran has anti-gay laws, and she just wanted to be defiant, which is something I can identify with strongly. I often feel that sense of defiance within me, so I enjoyed that spirit. Before the actors filmed this movie, she had them watch a bunch of spaghetti westerns and also Nosferatu to help get the spirit of this movie. I highly recommend it. I really think you'll enjoy it. You can watch it on Amazon Prime, and it does have subtitles because it is in Persian, but I think you'll really enjoy it, and you'll really get a lot of the vision of this movie, and I think you'll be incredibly impressed that in 2014, this movie was made for only $56,000. For the first half of our late night double feature picture show, we've chosen the 2005 movie The Descent. It's directed by Neil Marshall, who, shout out to Werewolf Night, also directed Dog Soldiers. When he was approached to direct this movie, Neil Marshall originally didn't want to do it because he didn't want to be typecast as a horror director. He ended up saying yes to this because he thought he could cast all women as the leads in this movie, and that way he wouldn't be typecast as a certain kind of horror director. He also thought that women are severely underrepresented in horror. I would agree with that statement. And so he really wanted to make a female-driven horror movie. As part of the direction of the movie, Neil Marshall also asked some of his female friends how they would interact in these situations to avoid making the female characters more cliche. The movie starts out with friends Sarah, Juno, and Beth, who are thrill seekers. They go on a whitewater rafting trip, and then as soon as they get back, unfortunately, Sarah's husband and daughter are killed in a car accident. Then we fast forward to a year later, when the ladies go to the Appalachian Mountains to a cabin in North Carolina so they can go spelunking into a cave. They hike into a mountain cave, and then they descend into a narrow passage, which immediately collapses behind them. Juno reveals at this point that they're not in the part of the cave that they told their friends and family they'd be in, that instead they're in an undiscovered part of the cave. She was trying to do that to make up for the fact that she wasn't super there for Sarah after her husband and daughter died. And like, you guys, like, if you want to apologize to me, taking me into an undiscovered part of a cave where there's like lots of narrowness and we might get stuck, probably not the way to do it. Like, edible arrangements exists, and that is probably a better way to say I'm sorry. I'm just throwing that out there for you guys to know, like, chocolates, polygraph certificates. If you take me into a cave, no, Don't do that. I like the discovered part of caves sometimes, as long as it's not like super skinny. Claustrophobic. No caves. Edible arrangement. That's what you take away. After the wall collapses behind them, they notice that there are some drawings on the wall that seem to indicate there's an exit somewhere ahead. They start to make their way through the cave, and all of a sudden they start seeing these humanoid creatures appear that are called crawlers. Yes, they're called crawlers, but they're not like actually zombies, and they're just called crawlers. They're a separate creature. Not mad at the Descent for that, just FYI. After the crawlers show up, the women have to fight for their survival, and there are lots of other twists and turns within the Descent. Honestly, one of the feelings of the Descent is a sense of claustrophobia, even just watching the movie. You want to create more space for yourself just in watching the movie, just to make sure that you're not in that claustrophobic situation that these women are in. So it's very visceral, and that's the part of the movie that scared me the most. It really stuck with me. The actors actually were not allowed to see the crawlers previous to seeing them while they were on film, so they have more realistic reactions to the crawlers. Also, this movie did end up having to compete with The Cave, which started filming before The Descent started filming. So they sped the whole process up so it would be released before The Cave, because they thought they had a better chance of competing that way. I think you'll enjoy The Descent. I think it will probably make you feel uncomfortable just because of the claustrophobia, but it's a really good watch, and I think it's really worth your time. You can watch The Descent on Tubi, Pluto TV, and Vudu. For the second half of our late night double feature picture show, we've chosen the 2002 psychological horror film May. May was directed by Lucky McKee. This was his directorial debut. May stars Angela Bettis, Jeremy Sisto, Anna Faris, and James Duval. This movie was distributed by Lionsgate. Shout out to Lionsgate, who distributes a lot of low-budget horror movies. This movie was definitely a low-budget horror movie. This movie didn't do extremely well in movie theaters, but it's now considered a cult classic. May is a woman in her mid-20s. She's had trouble socializing her entire life because of a lazy eye. Let me just read that. She's had trouble socializing her entire life because of a lazy eye. Look, a lazy eye is fixable. Just like have your parents take you to the optometrist. You don't need to like put your kid through a lot of misery because they have a lazy eye. May gets her lazy eye corrected by an optometrist, first with glasses and then with contacts. And then she begins to go out into the world and socialize more. She befriends a mechanic named Adam, and she becomes very, very fascinated by his hands. She also ends up befriending a woman named Polly, who is a lesbian and who she eventually also has an affair with. She also is romantically linked to Adam for a while. She gets a cat. She starts volunteering at a school for blind children and really enjoys that. One thing about May is that even in her mid-20s, she does consider her best friend to be a doll in a glass box named Susie. She talks to Susie. She hears Susie talk back to her sometimes. So there's still a little weirdness just from her lack of socialization throughout the years going on there. Things are going pretty well for May, and then kind of all starts to fall apart. And then she kind of starts to fall apart. I don't want to spoil the movie, so I don't want to say a lot more. It's a brilliant performance by Angela Bettis. This is a really great movie. If you haven't seen it, I definitely highly recommend it. It is definitely a psychological thriller for sure. And it dares to ask the question, how do you make new friends? Or do you make new friends? May is available on Tubi and on Pluto TV, which are both free. For our Halloween and other media today, I am so excited about this one. It is the Jess-O-Lantern 2021 album, Candy Screams. If you've never heard of Jess-O-Lantern, do yourself a favor. Go to Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube Music or wherever you get your streaming music and look her up. It's Jess, Jess -O-Lantern. We had the great privilege of seeing her perform live at DragonCon. It was a great performance, and also she has on some really cool horror leggings that I just remember to this day because they were just really cool. Jess-O-Lantern plays the guitar and sings. I read a description of her music as acoustic horror punk met with cabaret in a graveyard. And I loved that description, and I think that it's apt. There is some punkiness to it. There's some like songs that skew more like rock music. I really like the punky sound that she has throughout her albums. She sings about monsters, about horror movies, and about Halloween. My favorite song from her current album is I Want to Be Your Final Girl. I just really love it, and we got to see her perform that live, and it was awesome. Jess-O-Lantern calls herself a living dead ghoul, so I hope that gives you a good representation of how she sees herself and how she fits into this community. I just really love her music, and we also got to meet her after her live show, and she was very delightful to meet as well. I just highly recommend that you go to your music streaming service of your choice and look her up and play some of her music for yourself. I think that you'll really enjoy it. Alright, Pumpkin Patch, that's it for our Killer Queens Day. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope that you get a chance to look up all of these kick butt ladies that we've talked about here tonight and see what they have to offer. I want to thank you for watching this video. Please, if you would, click or treat. That's where you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, share it with your friends who you think might enjoy it, and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out a lot. But if all you ever do is watch these videos, thank you so much. We love and appreciate you so much. Please also stalk us on all the social media. We have a ton of spooky content coming out. And thank you so much for riding with the Fall Horsemen, where Halloween lives and fall is forever. And he wants her uncle visit during the horror movie, all of our horror movies today have lead actresses. Movies that are that's still not it. Horror movies today are an adult woman who's still. This movie is an which is shout out to not Vampire Night.